Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the great Russian novelist, was once asked the penetrating question, what is wrong with the 20th century? Solzhenitsyn thought a minute and responded, the problem with the 20th century is men and women have forgotten God. Why is that a problem? Because God is love. Why is that a problem? Because when God created you and me, He created us as relational beings. And if we forget about God, we move away from real love. Love in America is a cocktail of infatuation, convenience, and excitement. That is not what the love of God is all about. The love of God is all about seeking the highest good of another person. Let me ask you, when you are confronted by suffering, when you are confronted by a hurting person, how do you respond? One of the most fascinating exercises is to watch a group of people watching the news on television. A scene of people starving, suffering, dying in Haiti comes on the television screen. It is absolutely fascinating to watch the different responses in the people in that room. Some of them might even begin to weep, but their weeping doesn't produce action. Their understanding of love is, it's just a sentiment. And when I'm confronted by suffering people, if I weep, that's doing something. No, it's not. It's not doing a thing, and it doesn't solve anything. To love, according to Jesus Christ, is to seek and to work for the highest good for other people. That's why Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10. Jesus told about a Jewish man going on a difficult mountainous road. Suddenly, criminals swept down, knocked him off his horse, robbed him, beat him, and left him in a puddle of blood on the side of the road. Then Jesus said, a very religious man came along. He saw the Jew lying in a puddle of blood on the side of the road. He didn't have time to get involved. He was not motivated to do anything for the guy. He walked by. A second religious man came along. He saw the wreck of grief lying in a puddle of blood on the side of the road, and he too was not moved to do anything. He wasn't motivated to help. He just kept right on going. Then Jesus said, a Samaritan came along. You must understand, there was all types of racial bigotry and prejudice between Jews and Samaritans in first century Palestinian society. There were plenty of reasons for that Samaritan to keep right on trucking and ignore the hurting man on the side of the road. But Jesus said the Samaritan stopped. He was motivated by genuine love. He got down and he cleaned out the cuts and bandaged the wounds of the Jew. And then he put the man on his horse, brought him to an inn, and paid the innkeeper to take care of and to heal the Jew. Then Jesus said, go and do likewise. That is love. Love is not an idle sentiment. Love is not simply having some tears roll down your cheeks because you're empathizing with somebody. Love must act. It must act for the well-being, to produce the well-being of other people. Little Billy was in junior high. He had cerebral palsy. He went to a junior high camp. Junior high school students can be cruel. One day, Billy asked a fellow camper which way it was to the craft shop. And the junior high school kid twisted his body like a pretzel, like he had cerebral palsy, and pointed in 100 different directions and said, it's that way. He got a laugh out of it. A laugh at the expense of a little kid with cerebral palsy. But the cruelty reached its height when Billy's tent voted that he should lead camp devotions. They knew that Billy would stutter and make a fool of himself in front of the entire camp, and they thought it would be hilariously funny to watch that take place. The chapel began. Billy stood up at the back and began his long, spastic walk down the aisle. Kids began to laugh. When Billy reached the front of the chapel, he turned around, looked those fellow campers in the face, and began his speech. Jesus loves me. Silence settled over that junior high school camp. Billy continued, Jesus loves me. One boy began to weep. Billy continued his talk. And I love Jesus. Every kid was weeping. Why? Because they understood that Billy was totally in touch with reality. the real, true, living God who loves every one of us so much that he sent his only Son, Jesus Christ, to bleed and die on a cross for you, for Billy, and for me. Now it's time, isn't it, to respond to this God of love by putting your faith in him, by putting your trust in Jesus Christ, by asking him to forgive you for the wrong you've done, and by committing your life to live a life of love in the power of Jesus Christ. It is hard to love. It's hard for me to love. It's hard for you to love. And it is hard for Billy to love. But Christ wants to help us. And he says, open up your heart, open up your personality, open up your soul to me, and I will live within you. And I will flood you with my love, and I will begin to give you the power to love others. God bless you as you make that most important decision.